Irvin. It appears is going to. Here he is up the fourth corner. Yes, Ernie Irvin wins the Busch 500.
Here you see Irvin. Won his first Winston Cup race just a year ago, but he's going to win a lot more. Guy is good.
Ernie's aggressive, and he admittedly follows Earnhardt's path.
It seems wherever Ernie Irvin goes these days, controversy follows.
I don't want to get hurt driving one of these race cars, and this looks like the kind of guy that could hurt you.
He's gone.
At 8:40 a.m. this morning, Ernie Irvin slammed the second turn concrete wall.
One of NASCAR's brightest stars, Ernie Irvin, is clinging on to life in a Michigan hospital.
One of the most incredible comebacks in all of sports history. Ernie Irvin, a 10% chance of surviving, but now he's back in a race car.
Ernie Irvin, he's back in victory lane.
It is said that strength comes from pain. In that respect, Ernie Irvin is a very strong man. In his life, he's endured both great difficulty and success, and brought excitement to the racetrack with driving skills few possessed. Through it all, Ernie has survived as a testimony to his resiliency. Ernie's personal life was filled with pain. In his biography, he wrote, quote, "I started out the 1991 season in great emotional upheaval. I was living a nightmare out of a bad country and western song. Before the season, Ernie's wife filed for divorce, and he moved into a studio apartment. Just 2 days after winning the Daytona 500, she gave birth to the couple's second son, but there was little joy to be had. In March, Ernie met a woman named Kim, and they soon began dating. Part of the reason his marriage failed was that his wife had been cheating on him. Kim suggested that he run a DNA test to confirm that he truly was the father of his 2 sons. Then came the devastating news. He wasn't the father of either. Within months, he lost his wife, 2 sons, and would face the very public criticism of his fellow racers.
Finishing 5th in the standings was Ernie Irvin.
I wouldn't be standing here right now if it wasn't for Tony Glover and Larry McClure taking a chance on putting a driver in the car that didn't have a lot of experience, and we keep building. We finished 9th last year in points. We gained 4 this year. So if we gain 4 next year, we'll be sitting up here where Dale is. Congratulations, Dale and Teresa, on your great job this year. Thank you.
"1991 was a rewarding but difficult year. Ernie later wrote, quote, "I was extremely angry with my wife and felt very alone, except for my great friendships with members of my race team. You couldn't have written a soap opera during that period of my life that was as confusing and complex as what I was going through. It was not an easy time in my life. I spent a lot of time feeling confused and hurt. Consequently, I was a bundle of emotions all through the 1992 season. Sometimes it was hard for me to stay focused. Too often, I had difficulty concealing my irritation and controlling my anger."
His crash would take place, a 12-car pileup in turn 1. The most serious injury came to Ernie Irvin, who broke his collarbone as he was hit by Ward Burton.
Ernie Irvin, only 2 hours out of the hospital, pulls the car into pit road. Now, what they did before the start of engine, they practiced this driver exchange to try and get it done as quickly and expeditiously as possible. Irvin still hurting with the collarbone. He is out of the car, as you can see, and now Labonte gets in.
A week after the race, Ernie and Kim were married.
Earnhardt, Jarrett, Irvin.
Is he going to win the Winston 500? Jimmy Spencer is second. They come through the tri-oval. Checkered is waving. Ernie Irvin wins, and Rusty spins and gets airborne and flips wildly right at the start-finish line, very reminiscent of his accident at Daytona.
Man, I tell you what, when it comes down to a shootout, I wouldn't trade Ernie Irvin for anybody in the world. I tell you, he's a...
One day before the July race at New Hampshire, Ernie and Davey Allison spent a lot of time together at the track and at dinner. Ernie later said, quote, "I can honestly say that Loudon we became really good friends. I am very grateful that I was given that opportunity to become friends with him and see him in a different light."
The world of stock car racing is mourning the death of a daredevil tonight. A 32-year-old legend in the making died this morning from injuries suffered in a helicopter crash.
This morning, the 32-year-old Allison died from a fatal head injury after his helicopter crashed.
After attending Allison's funeral, the next Cup race was at Pocono. On Saturday night, he was contacted by Ford to see if he would be interested in driving the number 28 car. While Ernie was winning races at Morgan McClure, he felt they would never be a championship team. He suffered the 5th mechanical failure of the year and left Pocono just 11th in points. Ernie welcomed the birth of his daughter, Jordan.
Getting around Dale Earnhardt, and here's Ernie Irvan. Looked like he's slowing down.
He was running an 11th spot.
With an offer in place to drive the 28 car for Robert Yates in 1994, the only thing holding him back was his contract with Morgan McClure, the one he signed after just one race in 1990. But contracts can be broken, and so can a lot of other things.
When we got to Bristol, I asked Ernie, and he said, yep, I'm going. I said, and you can't stop me. I said, what do you mean? I said, I got a 5-year contract. He said, 2 years remaining. He said, well, let me tell you something, Larry. Well, I got it figured. I'm in control of the stern wheel, the gas pedal, and the clutch pedal. You can't afford to keep me. And I'll show you. And he did. Well, he blew 3 engines that weekend.
The blown engines at Bristol were especially painful, considering the track was the team's home race. In his book, Ernie disputed the idea he gave anything less than 100%, writing, quote, once Larry McClure realized I was leaving, the atmosphere in the shop turned ugly, and for several weeks stayed that way. Larry and I wouldn't talk to each other. It was a bad situation, though I can honestly say the unpleasantness never affected the way I drove the car for him. Just a few days after Bristol, Ernie was released from his contract, believing that Ford had bought out the contract from Morgan McClure.
And there has been a significant driver change in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. Earlier in the weekend, it was announced that Ernie Irvan, who was supposed to drive the car next year, would in fact take over as of today. We talk with car owner Robert Yates.
There was no enticement to get him to drive the car, but certainly we expect him to run the car well, and we feel he will. Our responsibility is to make it a good car, because he's, in his words of saying it's a championship team, we have a lot to live up to for what Ernie's opened his mouth about.
Ernie, this week you're in the news a lot, and we just heard Robert Yates say there was no enticement for you to come over there, but successful 3.5 years with the Kodak team, Morgan McClure, why make a change?
Well, I tell you, Jerry, the biggest thing you got to remember is we never asked to leave now. It was always at the end of the year. But, my idea was to move on to a different team. Robert Yates race team is a championship caliber team right now. And, the Morgan McClure team's an awful good race team. I just feel I needed to do something a little different to put myself in the hunt to win the championship.
For the dominating day.
Well, I tell you, it's pretty emotional. The whole time I kept thinking, Davey never made it to victory lane here. Bobby never has. And everybody had their own idea what they wanted to do for victory lane. I've been wearing this shirt since I started driving this car. I knew we could do it. This is for Davey.
That NASCAR had raced at early in the season, Irvan had outscored Earnhardt by 58 points. The Michigan weekend started poorly for Irvan. On Thursday, Ernie qualified 22nd for the Busch Series race to be held on Saturday. The next day, he qualified 19th for the Cup race. The Saturday morning Cup practice gave a chance for the team to improve the car for an important race on Sunday.
It was an early practice, just like practice always is at Michigan on Saturday morning, and him and I talked about making a 10-lap run. And I think he was feeling some stuff out about the car, and a lot of times Ernie would do this. If we talked about making a 10-lap run, he'd run 11 laps. If we talked about making a 25-lap run, he'd go and run one more lap just to try to get that last feel for the race car to come in and start working on it. He went down the front stretch, he completed that 10th lap. Just as I anticipated, he was going to run that 11th lap, or at least the next part of the corner of that 11th lap. And as he went down the front stretch, I said to give him his lap time, and I said, pretty obvious we're going to have to work on that thing. It's pretty tight.
He ran his 10th lap and said that it was pushing a little bit, so
Larry come over radio and told him, he says, okay, he says, won't you come in? And he says, I'm gonna run one more lap. And then the next thing I knew, he was in the wall. And I told Larry, and Larry thought it was somebody else. He didn't know it was us. And nobody else on the truck saw it but me. And it was real foggy that morning, real hazy. And I was writing lap times down, and I seen Raymond Fox waving his hands like cautions on the racetrack. And I keyed my mic, and I said, Ernie, caution.
At 8:40 a.m. this morning, the first Winston Cup practice session, Ernie Irvan slammed the second turn concrete wall.
With his injuries so severe, the medical helicopter was flown directly to the backstretch. Among his injuries, a crushed larynx that prevented him from breathing. While a normal person's blood oxygen level is around 95%, track doctor John Mano at the crash site found Irvan at 15%. Mano performed an emergency tracheotomy and restored airflow to Irvan's lungs. Irvan suffered several injuries, any one of which could have been fatal. A basilar skull fracture, which caused massive blood loss, severe brain bruising, but the most serious injuries were a bruised heart and 2 collapsed lungs. His survival through the night depended on his heart and lung function stabilizing.
Somebody wanted percentages, and he said, well, at the best, I can give him his 10% to survive the night, to even live at all.
As he lay in bed with tubes and machines keeping him alive, Kim put Jordan's shoe in Ernie's hand and felt there was improvement.
It's a gray, cloudy day at the Michigan International Speedway, which fits the mood of those in attendance here. One of NASCAR's brightest stars, Ernie Irvan, is clinging on to life in a Michigan hospital. He crashed the Robert Yates Haviland Ford hard into the Turn 2 wall yesterday during a practice run. It resulted in a fractured skull, injured lungs, and other injuries. He is listed in critical condition.
Dr. Errol Erlandson issued an update on Ernie, and he, of course, remains on life support in the intensive care unit. What the doctors have tried to make us all understand that the brain injury is a neurological injury, and it's difficult to set a timetable for improvement or even complete prognosis.
It's just, it's a tragedy, and in this business you don't have very many friends, and, I don't plan on losing this one, and I just want to ask everybody out there to say a prayer for Ernie.
400 here at Michigan International Speedway. We will bring to an end a very emotional weekend here at this facility. And of course, we again say that Ernie Irvan remains in critical condition, but we will be thinking of him and praying for him this coming week.
The news last Saturday night was pretty grim. This evening, serious but stable has never sounded so good. Irvan's condition has been upgraded. It was critical.
This week, the NASCAR Winston Cup Tour moves to the High Bank Oval in Bristol, Tennessee. But all thoughts still focus on the incredible recovery of injured driver Ernie Irvan. Last week when he was injured, some doctors gave Ernie less than a 20% chance of survival. But the recovery has been just incredible. In fact, they're already talking about weaning him off the ventilator. He's able to move all his extremities, his arms and legs, to command. He's able to follow objects with his eyes. In fact, he even lurched forward earlier this week to greet drivers Dale Earnhardt and Mark Martin, who came up to visit.
I don't really remember getting up that morning. I don't remember any of the wreck. And for about 15 days later, just 15 to 19 days later, is the first time I remember something. What I recall kind of remembering is actually watching the race at Richmond on TV.
Got one car down. It's 28, Kenny Wallace. Yellow is out.
I started asking Kim, about the accident, and she could only tell me as much as she knew, and how I was injured, and why this, or why am I, laying in this bed. I mean, I didn't remember any of that. So the first thing I started saying is, okay, says, well, when are we going to be able to, race in a little, is it going to be a week before I get to go racing again, or what? And she says, she kept telling me that, no, we're just worried about you being able to live the rest of your life instead of worrying about racing. And I said, well, we're going to go racing again. I'm just going to have to start figuring out, where we're at on this situation.
Ernie was moved to a rehab clinic in Charlotte, where he practiced his hand-eye control by driving a remote control version of his car. He would chase the nurses with the car and drive it in and out of his room.
Hello.
Rusty.
Yes.
Hey, congratulations, man. It was a great race.
Thank you very much, man.
It's Ernie.
Ernie, buddy, we're pulling for you, man. I'll tell you what, your car ran good today.
Yeah, Kenny did a great job.
Yeah, well, heck, we're all talking about you. We're all looking forward to getting back. Man, you're making it easy for me right now. When you were around, it was hard, boy, I tell you.
Yeah, I tell you, we had some great races there at Martinsville. I'm going to be at Charlotte, so I'm going to be there to watch you anyway.
Well, great, man. It's good seeing you. I tell you what, we're gonna have a lot more races come Daytona. Is that right?
Yeah, I hope so.
I don't care if we need to see out our toes. We're going to be there, man.
Thanks.
Ernie, are you there?
Kenny.
Hey,
Kenny
buddy.
did a great job today.
Well, man, you know, you finished second. You won last time here. I finished fourth, so you're still the greatest, and we could get back in here.
I tell you, you did a great job today, and you know, these guys needed some pumping up, so I'm glad you did it.
Well, thank you. You know, I just want you to know, Ernie, that, man, as soon as you get back, I hope you take a seat out of this race car. I know how hard it is for you, but we all love you.
Ernie's outlook went from bleak while laying in that Michigan hospital to bright when he made it back to the garage area at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, a mere 6 weeks after that near-fatal accident.
Being back at the racetrack just meant a lot, and you know, this is the place that I like being. This is like home to me.
With a smile on his face, Ernie got to visit with his old buddies. Some were even a bit envious.
Earnhardt told me he wanted a patch like I had, because he said that's supposed to be the new thing. So I'm kind of hoping all the fans will start wearing a patch, and so I won't feel like the odd man out.
And just 6 weeks after almost losing his own life, it was with just a smile that Ernie Irvan breathed a whole lot of life back into the racing world.
Feeling really good. You know, 2 weeks ago I didn't really think I'd be feeling this good, but you know, everything's really shaping up, and sure like to be here racing.
When he returned to the track, Ernie looked like his usual self, except that he was wearing an eye patch over his left eye. He had suffered nerve damage to his eye and had trouble focusing or moving it. Because his left eye was pointing at a different angle, he developed double vision.
Well, I tell you, you know, my health has really gone really good, and the doctors keep saying it's even more of a miracle because of how fast I've been recovering, and I'll probably be in better shape in about another month than I ever have been.
Well, the word is that he's working out, folks. He's even playing a little racquetball, and with wife Kim and daughter Jordan by his side pushing him, there's a good chance that we might see Ernie Irvan back in a race car very soon, and that indeed is wonderful news.
In the first week of January, Ford teams were testing at Daytona. It was at this moment that Ernie made his return in secret.
But by January, Ernie was actually doing pretty good. And we were down there testing at Daytona.
I mean, I just was like bound and determined that I had to get in a race car. And I just was like, man, I gotta get in this thing. I gotta drive it. Robert and Larry are like, I mean, there's no way you can do that. So I'm telling you, I can do that. So we come up with this wild idea to say, okay, you know, because they said no matter what, NASCAR won't let us do that.
And you know how the old garages used to be, and you could kind of spread out in there and not be right on top of each other, you know, because all that was there was Fords. And we were kind of in that one back garage there, kind of in the back. And I can't believe we schemed this plan. Pulled our van, team van, in the garage area to kind of block the rest of the garage area.
So our scam is Dale Jarrett had went out and practiced, and so he come in and got out of the car with helmet on and everything and went into the transporter. I come out with the helmet on and everything, same helmet, same uniform, same everything, and so I got in there and got in the car and backed out. Nobody even knew nothing, and backed out, went on the racetrack, and had no problem about getting to speed, and that's how easy Daytona is. And I mean, I was the same speed that Dale was, but that's what the car was. So
I mean, we were probably not very smart doing that. I mean, he had not really been released. but he wanted to do it. And you know what? We wanted to let him do it. And I never will. When I finally saw that thing coming off the racetrack, it felt like the weight of the world, because I'm telling you, if you'd have thumped me, I'd have probably split in half while he was out there making these laps.
It just gave me a lot of ambition and hope.
Irvin first targeted his comeback for the spring, perhaps at Sears Point, where he was the defending winner. But in late April, Ernie was diagnosed with an aneurysm in a neck artery, which was pinching the nerves that controlled eye movement and caused his double vision. Over the summer, he had several surgeries to repair the aneurysm and fix the muscles controlling eye movement. Finally, he was given full approval to return to racing in September.
Back at Martinsville Speedway in Martinsville, Virginia, we told you that this weekend is very special. One of the most incredible comebacks in all of sports history. Ernie Irvan 13 months ago, a 10% chance of surviving, but now he's back in a race car.
Yeah, Winston Cup stock car hero Ernie Irvan was expecting to make his return to competition. Indeed, Ernie climbed in the number 28 truck and was one of the fastest in practice for the NASCAR Craftsman Super Truck Series race. Unfortunately, rains moved into the speedway on Saturday and stayed throughout the qualifying and the scheduled truck race itself. As a result, Ernie will have to wait until next weekend at North Wilkesboro.
For all of us that enjoy auto racing, it is the return of Ernie Irvan. The Tyson Holly Farms 400 is underway. The 88 car, driven by Ernie Irvan, is in the lead. Second place is Dale Earnhardt and Mark Martin. And his 17th career victory for Mark Martin, winner of the Tyson Holly Farms 400.
This is not victory lane, but you might really think it really could be for Ernie Irvan. Ernie, a big smile. Congratulations on an outstanding effort.
I tell you, this is great. You know, everybody wonders why Ernie Irvan wanted to come back to racing. This is what it's all about. You know, I had a ball out there racing and racing with all my buddies and competitors and the people that have been so supportive and these fans. I mean, this is nothing more exciting than out here racing like this.
After North Wilkesboro, Ernie began wearing glasses with prism lenses, which corrected the angle of vision in his left eye and meant he didn't have to wear the eye patch anymore. After the season ended, he again underwent surgery to repair his eye muscles and restored his vision to where it should be.
Most everybody got 4 tires. Ernie Irvan took on only 2, and he is the leader. Well, if you've been watching the battle for the lead, is there any doubt that Ernie Irvan is back?
Not up here. You look in that rearview mirror and you see Ernie catching you as you drive in that hard. He's got to know that 88 car of Ernie Irvan is flying right there with the Mexico.
Smoke from Irvan's car. He's done.
Now on a day where we've crowned a series champion and a race champion, here's a true champion. What a great day. Thanks for the thrills, Ernie.
Well, I tell you, thanks for all the fan support and, the people that believed in Ernie Irvan.
Before a man goes to war, he prepares both his body and his mind. He thinks of the past, but he remembers the future, and that he must face his fears if he is to live his dreams.
It's Ernie Irvan winning the Miller 400 over Jet Gordon.
Irvan's biggest challenge of the year was trying to keep up with a new teammate who was outperforming him, but a scary moment at Charlotte in October threatened to derail a good season.
Definitely does.
Got trouble. Ernie Irvan is in the wall. Oh, got snagged again, and savage crash.
Right, you got Robbie Gordon gathered up. That's John Andretti, I'm sorry.
John Andretti. And it gets deathly quiet around the Charlotte Motor Speedway after a hard crash in that corner. Crowd tensing as they saw the brutal conclusion of that incident.
Ernie didn't respond over the team radio. The crowd went silent as safety workers treated him. Fortunately, he only suffered a slight concussion and finished 4th the next race at Rockingham.
We would not have
There we see Sterling Marlin gets in the back of someone, and I still...
Look, it's Ernie Irvan.
Yeah.
Ernie Irvan in the car number 36.
Along comes
he gets hit hard.
And other cars, there's Mark spinning in the back.
Ernie Irvan, you can see, is being lifted very carefully out of his race car. The top of the car has been cut away. He's being put onto a backboard and then a stretcher and will go to the infield care center.
Irvan suffered a concussion in the crash and an injured neck. He started the race at Daytona 6 days later before giving the car to Ricky Craven, who drove it to an impressive 8th-place finish. But with lingering neck issues and an overall battered body, Ernie chose to sit out the rest of the season instead of returning for 1 or 2 races. Runs of 1998 didn't translate to 99. After 21 races, Irvan was 26th in points, the lowest he had been at that point of the season since 1988. He had 5 top 10 finishes and 9 finishes outside the top 30. But a trip to Michigan in August, of all places, offered a hope for a good run. Entering the race in June, Irvan said, quote, "Michigan has been a really good racetrack for me. If you take out my accident, the track has been great for me." In June, Irvan qualified 2nd and finished in 7th. The 5-year anniversary of his major crash fell on a Friday in 1999. Ernie had put it behind him, and it likely wasn't weighing on his mind when he went out for Busch Series practice. Irvan was unconscious when the safety workers reached the car, but he soon woke up. He was airlifted to the same hospital he was at 5 years earlier, being treated by the same doctors and nurses. He had suffered a bruised lung and another concussion.
Labor Day weekend started on a difficult note. Ernie Irvan, who had suffered a concussion from a crash while practicing his Busch car at the Michigan Speedway just a few weeks earlier, announced his retirement from the sport.
I appreciate everybody coming out. This is really a special moment in my career, and it's probably one I never thought I'd have to face. But I figure it's smart for me to retire.
Irvan's comeback from a near-death accident in 1994 was one of the most inspiring stories in NASCAR's 50-year history. Ernie will always be involved in the sport, but we will all always miss him on the racetrack.
A series of accidents took Ernie's career from him, but still there was one final misfortune that took what was left. On March 25, 2000, while the family was on vacation in the Bahamas, their home in Mooresville, North Carolina, caught fire and burned to the ground. While the family lost almost all their possessions, also lost were Ernie's racing memorabilia, including most of his trophies and racing uniforms, like the one he wore in the 1991 Daytona 500. Some survived, like a Skittles uniform pulled from under a foot of rubble by a police officer. The officer got it cleaned and returned it to Ernie, who then donated it to the police to auction off to raise money for the Special Olympics. Memories were all Ernie was left with, but that wasn't enough for a man who had the respect of so many. The many friends he had made wanted to give something back. While walking in the garage at Daytona in late June, Ernie was unexpectedly brought into the media center. Waiting for him was NASCAR president Mike Helton, who told Ernie that he was my hero. "I mean that. You've been my hero for a long time." Then a curtain was pulled down, and Ernie was surprised with exact replicas of all 15 trophies he won as a Cup driver. Jared Irvan followed his father into racing and competed in late model events.
Basically a paint scheme of the Daytona 500 winner, so I think we've got him up beat.
He won the Daytona 500 in that paint scheme, so I'm hoping to bring back a little glory to it, you know. We got about as close as we can get it without having the actual old sponsor on it.
Ernie continues to be well admired and was honored as one of NASCAR's 75 greatest drivers in 2023. When people called him Swervin' Irvan in response to crashing, Ernie wrote that it made him furious. A dictionary definition would say that to swerve is to change directions quickly. For For good and bad, Ernie has had to change directions very quickly many times in his life. But through unwavering strength, Ernie Irvan has always moved forward. Maybe it's not so bad to be swerving after all.